Don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss stories that uncover hidden truths and shake the soul. The night was cold, and the wind crept through the shutters like an old memory refusing to be forgotten. General Ibrahim Traoré, long retired, lived in solitude in a modest house far from the capital. His medals collected dust, his uniform had long since faded in color, but the war inside him never truly ended. At exactly 3:11 a.m., the old landline rang. He hadn't heard that sound in over a decade. The only people who knew the number were either dead or better off forgotten. Alain hesitated, then picked up. "General Endure," he said, his voice heavy with years. The voice on the other end sent a chill through his spine. It was low, raspy, but unmistakable. "Still calling yourself General, old friend?" Alain gripped the receiver. "Kofi? You sound older, slower, but memory doesn't age like the body, does it? You remember the Red Protocol?" His heart skipped. "We buried that plan," Alain muttered. "We agreed. It was over." Kofi's voice turned dark. "You buried it. I resurrected it." Click. The line went dead. Alain stared at the wall. His old comrade, the man he'd presumed dead in Operation Thunderlight, was alive. And now he was invoking a plan that should have stayed secret forever. The Red Protocol. A document that had once outlined a strategy to dismantle the corrupted top tier of the nation. By force, but they'd both agreed. It was too dangerous, too extreme, too many innocent lives at stake. And yet, Kofi had revived it. Alain walked over to his old military cabinet. Buried beneath forgotten reports and unopened letters, he found the locked black case. He hadn't opened it since 2015. His hands trembled as he placed the key. Inside, among yellowed maps and encrypted disks, was a single sheet of paper. The Red Protocol. Names, locations, schedules. At the top, Minister of Interior. Execution window, 0800 a.m. Alain's breath caught. At 7:52 a.m., Alain sat in front of the old television set he barely used anymore. Static turned into breaking news. A banner scrolled across the bottom of the screen. Interior Minister's convoy attacked. Minister in critical condition. His blood ran cold. Kofi had kept his word. It wasn't a bluff, it was a message. And this was only the beginning. The Red Protocol had 12 names. The minister was just the first. Alain knew that if the rest followed, the entire national structure would collapse. But how could he stop a ghost? The phone rang again, this time a burner device hidden beneath the floorboards. Unknown number, of course. "Next is the Northern Command General, 2:00 p.m., Kofi said casually, as if announcing a dinner meeting. "And Alain, if you try to stop this, you're already a suspect. Think about that." "Kofi, listen to me," Alain began, but the line was already cut. Alain stood in silence. He was no longer just a witness. He was being dragged back into a war, one he had chosen to leave behind years ago. A war without uniforms, without flags, a war of shadows between memory and betrayal. He couldn't go to the authorities. The moment he appeared, he'd be arrested. His fingerprints were all over the Red Protocol. His name was on the original draft. No one would believe he wasn't behind the attacks. And worse, deep down he feared Kofi might not be wrong. As corruption had eaten through the nation's institutions, Alain had watched silently. He had tried reforms, meetings, honest reports, all ignored. And slowly, the fire that once burned inside him had cooled into ash. Now Kofi had reignited it, but in the most dangerous way possible. To anyone watching, what would you do if someone used your own forgotten ideals as a weapon? Let us know in the comments. Some stories raise questions that don't have easy answers. At 1:45 p.m., Alain turned on the news again. He didn't want to believe it. But there it was. Breaking attack on northern military base. General Kamaru confirmed dead. 2 names down, 10 to go. The third call came. Kofi's voice was steady, even playful. "Still watching? You're in this now, whether you act or not. Either you help me finish what we started, or you'll be treated just like the rest of the men. What do you want from me? I want you to remember who you were." And then he gave a location. The village of Sandu, a mosque near the old mission base. "You know the one," he said, Be there by nightfall. Come alone. Alan's hands were shaking, but he didn't hesitate. He packed only what he needed: an old pistol, a burner phone, and a copy of the Red Protocol. He was going to face the ghost of a man he once trusted with his life. And maybe, just maybe, find out who the real traitor had been. The road to Sandu was half forgotten, like a scar the country had chosen not to look at. Alan kept his head low beneath the palm, wearing worn civilian clothes. He drove an old pickup truck borrowed from a village mechanic, every turn of the wheel feeling like a step deeper into a past he had buried. As dusk settled over the horizon, he reached the village. Dusk clung to the air. The mosque was just as he remembered it from 20 years ago. Humble, cracked, silent. A single lantern flickered by the entrance. Elderly women sat on their porches, watching him, eyes narrowed in recognition or fear. He entered the mosque, heart thudding. The mats were old. The walls carried the scent of prayers long gone. And then, a voice behind him. "Put the gun down, Alan." He turned. There he was, Kofi Ayewa. Not a ghost, not a memory. A man of flesh and bone. A burn scar stretched down the side of his face, and he limped slightly on one leg. Time had carved lines into his skin, but the fire in his eyes was untouched. "I thought you died," Alan whispered. "I needed to, for this to work. They buried me. I let them." He gestured to a corner, and Alan sat slowly, still watching his former comrade's every move. This is madness," Alan said. "This isn't justice. You're turning the nation into a battlefield." Kofi sat across from him, eyes cold. "You think they didn't already do that? Quietly, politely, with papers and bribes. I just made the war visible." "What's the endgame, a bloodbath?" "No, a reset." He handed Alan a small device, a new phone. "From now on, only I call you. You don't reach me. You don't talk to anyone else. If you try, I'll know." Alan looked at the phone in his hand. The war he had once escaped was pulling him in, but this time there were no uniforms, no orders, only blurred lines. "You want me to be your pawn. I want you to be what you once were." Kofi stood up. "In 24 hours, the next 3 targets fall. By then, you'll have chosen your side." As Kofi limped out into the darkness, Alan sat alone in the mosque, staring at the device in his hand. He knew the question wasn't if he'd be dragged in. It was how deep he'd go before there was no return. If you're still watching, tell us. Can a man outrun the past he helped create? Would you trust an old friend who came back from the dead? Leave a comment. We read them all. By the time Alan returned to the safe house, the capital was in chaos. The evening news flickered with red banners. Explosions reported near Northern Command. Assassination confirmed. Security forces on high alert. It wasn't just attacks, it was a coordinated dismantling of the state. Alan sat in front of the old television, staring as his former world unraveled. Kofi wasn't just resurrecting a document, they were executing it, name by name. And the worst part? Only Alan knew what was coming next. The Red Protocol wasn't just about removing corrupt officials. It included stage-by-stage destabilization tactics, false flag operations, media infiltration, controlled civil unrest. He remembered drafting it decades ago in an underground bunker with Kofi and 2 other trusted men. Now it was no longer a theory. It was a roadmap being followed step by step. At 11:48 p.m., the burner phone rang again. "You're awake," Kofi's voice said. "Hard not to be, with the country burning." A short laugh. "It's cleansing fire, Alan. They can't trace this line, by the way. Encrypted frequency. Remember Operation Sapphire? We used the same tech." "You didn't call to reminisce." "No, I called to tell you to sleep lightly. Tomorrow you'll be contacted for your first active task." Alan stood, tense. "I'm not doing anything until I know what your endgame is." "You'll know soon enough. And if you say no, just remember, only 2 people knew about the Red Protocol, you and me. You think they'll believe your innocence once they find your name on the original draft?" Click. The line went dead again. That night, Alan didn't sleep. He reviewed every step in his mind. Who else might Kofi have working with him? What connections had he made over the past 5 years in exile? At 2 a.m., he heard a knock. No one should know this place. Pistol in hand, he approached the door carefully. A voice, a woman's, came through softly. "General Ibrahim Traoré, I'm not here to hurt you. Please, open the door." He waited, then unlocked the bolt slowly. She stepped in, raising her hands to show she was unarmed. "I'm Nadine Ezi," she said. She said, "communication analyst, intelligence division. I intercepted your call with Ayewa." "You tapped the line?" "No, but I've been tracking encrypted radio bursts. You used one we identified years ago. My team picked it up." Alon narrowed his eyes. "If you're here to arrest me, I'm here to help you," she interrupted. "We believe Kofi has made deals with foreign agents, arms traffickers, possibly oil and cobalt interests. He's not just targeting corrupt officials, he's creating a power vacuum for sale." Alon looked away. "I should have destroyed that file years ago." "But you didn't," she said calmly, "which means you might be the only one who can stop him." There was silence. Then she added, "Tomorrow he'll send you to collect a package. Don't go where he tells you. Come to the old transmission station east of the capital instead. I'll be waiting. I can prove everything." Before Alon could answer, she slipped out. The door shut behind her like the closing of a chapter. Alon stood in the dark, alone again. If he went to Kofi's location, he risked becoming a pawn. If he followed Nadine, it could be a trap. But either way, dawn would come with a choice. At precisely 9:00 the next morning, the burner phone vibrated on the table. Alon didn't move right away. He stood by the window, staring at the smoke rising from distant rooftops. His country was bleeding, and now he had to decide which hand held the knife. He finally answered. Kofi's voice was cheerful, as if nothing outside was burning. "Sleep well? You're asking that while half the capital is in lockdown? That's what progress looks like," Kofi said. "You want change, Alon? This is the price. Tell me what you want. Go to the old military depot east of the city. A man will give you a package. No questions, no inspection. You'll wait for further instructions after that." The line cut. Alon stared at the device. Then, without hesitation, he tossed it into his travel bag and drove toward the opposite direction, toward the old transmission station. Nadine had said she'd be waiting. That place used to broadcast patriotic songs during the war. Now it was abandoned, a relic left to rust like many of the ideals they once fought for. The building loomed gray against the sky, its antenna like a skeletal tower. Alon approached slowly, pistol ready. Inside, in a room full of dusty monitors and blinking equipment, Nadine stood. "You came," she said, visibly relieved. "You were right," Alon replied. "He wants me to pick up a package." "It's a setup," she said. "They'd have killed you there." She turned one of the monitors toward him. "We've been tracking his calls, not just to you, to foreign buyers, mercenaries, smugglers. The entire revolution is a cover." Alon listened as recordings played. Kofi speaking in coded French to international buyers. Names of border towns, quantities of cobalt and rare minerals, payment in untraceable cryptocurrency. "You still think this is about justice?" Nadine asked. "No," Alon whispered. "It's a takeover. He's selling out the land he swore to protect." "Exactly. And the worst part?" she added, zooming in on a tactical map. "We believe you're his final move, the last phase." "What do you mean?" "The Red Protocol ends with one final target, the president." Alon's face went pale. "Kofi wants you to be the assassin," she said. "You, the national hero, turned traitor. A perfect scapegoat, a perfect symbol." It made sense. The narrative was ready to be written. General Ibrahim Traoré, unable to stop the system from decaying, finally snapped and killed the president. Kofi would sweep in, restore order, and gain the trust of the broken public. Unless, Nadine said, we flipped the game. She explained her plan. They'd use the same encryption system Kofi trusted to send false orders to his men. Redirect them, disarm them, turn their strength into confusion. And all the while, they'd warn loyal forces about the true threat. "Will you help us?" she asked. Alon looked at the screen. his homeland blinking in digital grids and enemy zones. "If I don't," he said slowly, "this country won't survive what comes next." To everyone still watching, let us ask you this: can redemption come from betrayal? Or do some choices scar a man forever? Drop your thoughts below. We want to hear your take. Alain and Nadine worked through the night without pausing. Using the secure software provided by the intelligence unit, they simulated Kofi's encrypted voice and began transmitting false instructions to key rebel units. Convoys were redirected to empty coordinates. Arms deliveries were rerouted. Communications within the rebel network began to crack. Meanwhile, Nadine fed real-time updates to loyalist military contacts inside the capital. Reinforcements were being positioned silently around the palace, airports, and media centers. Kofi had relied on confusion. Now it would be turned against him. At 5:32 a.m., the burner phone rang again. Alain answered, his voice calm. "I'm in position." Kofi's tone was upbeat. "Good. That means you received the package." Alain hesitated. "Yes." "And what's inside?" Kofi's voice sharpened. It was a test. Alain gambled. "A black lock, a map, coordinates for the palace." A moment passed. Then Kofi laughed. Still sharp. "Excellent. You'll meet me in person. Café La Liberté, near the presidential palace. 10 o'clock sharp." The line died. Nadine looked at Alain, eyes wide. "You're going?" "I have to," he said. "If I don't, he'll suspect something. He'll kill you. Then I'll die trying to stop him." She stepped forward. "At least let us send backup." Alain shook his head. "If he sees a soldier, he'll disappear. He only trusts me." The clock struck 9:12 a.m. The capital was already erupting. Fires in the southern district. Clashes outside Parliament. Civilians running, shops shuttered. Sirens screaming across every street. But for the first time, loyalist units were responding swiftly. They were ready. At 9:57, Alain stepped into the cafe. It was mostly empty. One nervous waiter, a couple seated by the window, and a man in a brown coat pretending to read a newspaper. Alain sat at a rear table. At exactly 10 o'clock, the front door opened. Kofi entered, flanked by 2 armed guards. He walked straight to Alain's table, smiling. "So, the soldier returns." Alain didn't move. "We need to end this." Kofi sat, poured himself tea. "You've already played your role. Even if you refuse now, the story is written. The country believes you're with me." "You're wrong," Alain said. "They know what you are." "Do they?" Kofi leaned forward. "They see the headlines. Ministers dead, armies in retreat, a president hidden behind marble walls. They crave order. I will give it to them." Alain reached under the table. Kofi's guards tensed. "Relax," Alain said. "If I wanted to shoot, you'd be gone already." Kofi smirked. "Then why are you here?" "To buy time." At that moment, the cafe windows exploded inward. Smoke grenades rolled across the floor. Soldiers stormed the room. Nadine's team. Kofi's men opened fire but were outgunned. Kofi ran through the back, Alain right behind him. Down the alley, across cracked pavement, and through shattered fences, until they reached a dead end behind an old warehouse. Kofi turned, panting, gun drawn. "You traitor. I trusted you." Alain aimed but didn't fire. "You trusted no one. You used me. You used our country. They left me to die." "We tried to protect you," Alain said. "The villagers who found you? We sent them. We faked your death because someone had discovered our plan. I was going to tell you, but you vanished." Kofi's hand trembled. "You're lying." "The president isn't in the palace," Alain added. "He's safe. Your men are capturing an emptied building. You've lost." Kofi screamed and raised his weapon. Alain pulled the trigger first. Kofi dropped to the ground, gasping, bleeding, alive. Alain stood over him. Was it ever about the country? Kofi's eyes glazed. At first, yes, then it became about revenge. The sound of sirens approached. Nadine's voice crackled in Alain's earpiece. "We've secured the city. Most rebel units have surrendered. Foreign assets are being detained." Alain looked down one last time at the man he once called brother. "Goodbye, Kofi." Then he turned and walked into the light. 3 hours after Kofi was captured, Alain stood in the intelligence command room with Nadine. Monitors displayed live footage from across the capital. Rebel strongholds had fallen. Coordinated misinformation had split Kofi's forces. Government troops moved swiftly, cleaning up the remnants. But the damage was undeniable. Over 70 government officials had either fled, been detained, or killed. Civilian panic still raged. The country had survived a coup, but barely. Kofi lay in a secure hospital bed, heavily guarded. Doctors confirmed he would live, for now. He hasn't said much, Nadine reported. He's refusing to name names. Then we'll find the names without him, Alain replied. The president, previously evacuated, returned in secret to the command compound. When he met Alain, his expression was solemn. "You saved the Republic," he said. "No, Mr. President," Alain corrected. "I bought it a little more time." The president nodded slowly. "Then let's not waste it." Later that day, Nadine presented Alain with a list of intercepted communications. Foreign operatives, offshore accounts, arms transactions, mining deals promised in exchange for power. "This isn't just about Kofi," she said. "He was just the weapon. There's a much larger hand pulling the strings." Alain rubbed his temples. "And the strings are still moving." That night, Alain returned to the same safe house. Exhausted, his uniform soaked from sweat and dust, hung over a chair. He had done what he could, but the storm hadn't passed. At 2:14 a.m., a medic arrived with an urgent report. "Sir, Kofi's trying to speak." Alain followed the guard down the corridor to the secure room. Kofi lay pale, tubes in his arms, oxygen mask half slid from his face. But his eyes were clear, alert. Alain stepped closer. "Why now?" Kofi coughed. "Because I thought I was the monster, but they're worse." "Who?" Kofi looked toward the window. "They found me after the fire, the burn, the leg. I would have died, but they patched me up, gave me plans, resources. They wanted me to destabilize everything, so they could pick up the pieces." Alain's heart pounded. "Who are they, Kofi?" "You wouldn't know the names, but the documents, in the black case. You kept the case, didn't you?" "Yes." Kofi tried to smile. "Then they already know where to find you." The monitor beside him began to beep rapidly. His body convulsed. Doctors rushed in. Alain stepped back. Kofi's eyes locked onto his, then closed. The screen flatlined. Nadine arrived seconds later. "What happened?" "He named no one," Alain whispered, "but warned us they're not done." The war wasn't over. It had simply shifted shape. 48 hours after Kofi's death, the air in the capital was heavy, not just with smoke, but with silence. The kind that follows a storm but hides a deeper one building underground. Alain sat alone in a small room at intelligence headquarters. The black case from 15 years ago placed gently on the steel desk in front of him. It hadn't been touched since Kofi's resurrection. Now it had to be opened. Nadine entered without knocking. "Are you ready?" "No," Alain admitted, "but I'll never be." He unlatched the case and lifted the lid. Inside, next to faded maps and operation sketches, was a sealed envelope. The paper was thick, old. On the front, a word: Citadel. Nadine frowned. "What is that?" "A code name we used once for something we thought was paranoia." He opened the envelope. Inside was a list of 15 entities. Not individuals, entities. Investment groups, shell companies, 3-letter agencies. A diagram showed their links to arms trades, resource extraction, and covert regime manipulation across West Africa. At the center, a red circle labeled Operator Z. "This was the real enemy," Alain murmured. Kofi thought he was rebelling. He was executing a plan designed by them. Nadine's eyes moved quickly across the names. "This is bigger than our intelligence network. Some of these," she hesitated. "We've worked with some of them before." "Exactly," Alain said. "This isn't a coup. It's a silent colonization." They took the documents to the president the next morning. He studied them wordlessly for 20 minutes. When he finally spoke, his voice was dry. "What you're showing me, if made public, would collapse every major regional alliance. But keeping it hidden, Alain said, means we keep dancing in their palm. The president looked between Alain and Nadine. What do you propose? Alain stood straight. Let me go dark. No more uniforms, no public role, just a shadow among shadows. We hunt them from within. Nadine added, we'll need full clearance, unrestricted movement, and access to foreign intercepts. The president sighed. Do it, quietly. If this gets out, there'll be no country left to save. That evening, Alain packed light. The case, a new encrypted device, a burner passport. Nadine handed him a sealed envelope. Your new identity. It'll hold until you get to Dakar. From there, we rebuild. Alain gave her a long look. You don't have to follow this path. She smirked. You think I'd let you go ghost without me? Together, they exited through the rear gate. The official story would say Alain had retired again, that he left the capital for peace. But in truth, the war had simply changed its battlefield. 6 weeks later, in a rented apartment above a market in Dakar, Alain and Dur sat in silence watching the city breathe. Children played on the streets below, unaware of the war unfolding in boardrooms and encrypted chat rooms across the continent. Nadine entered the room with a folder. Intercept from 3 days ago. Operator Z may be moving funds through a Ghanaian satellite office. Shell companies are shifting fast. Alain took the file and scanned through the intel. Names, false IDs, payment logs in crypto, flights booked under diplomatic cover. They're cleaning up, which means we're close, Nadine said. But we're not the only ones tracking them. Alain raised an eyebrow. Who else? She hesitated. There's chatter, other factions, private networks. Some want revenge, others chaos. There's no guarantee we're the only ones left from the old guard who still want balance. Alain closed the folder. Then we don't stop. We dig until the core breaks open. At that moment, a secure laptop beeped. Nadine walked over and checked the source. Encrypted ping from an unknown server. Pattern matches. Kofi's old relay. Alain stood slowly. That's impossible. Unless someone else picked it up. They opened the message. One line of text. Red protocol never ended. You only reset the clock. Alain stared at the screen. No sender, no location trace. Just that single sentence. A warning or a threat. Nadine asked, do you think it's real? I think, Alain replied, that ghosts never disappear. They just find new voices. He turned toward the window. The sun was setting. A red haze fell over the city, and beneath it, forces moved unseen. Kofi had died, but his story, his use, was far from over. In the intelligence world, silence doesn't mean peace. It means preparation for the next strike, the next betrayal, the next whispered order in the dark. Alain checked his watch. We meet our contact in 40 minutes, near the port. Do you think we'll finally get close to Operator Z? Nadine asked. Alain didn't answer at first. Then with the faintest trace of a grim smile, if we do, this may not end with us walking away. They left the apartment with nothing but new IDs, micro syringes hidden in cuff seams, and truth tucked behind silence. No flags, no uniforms, just two shadows chasing something older than justice and deeper than war. And as they disappeared into the crowd, one final thought echoed in Alain's mind. Sometimes the dead don't stay buried because the world still needs to remember why they died.